In our ever-changing climate, staying cool increasingly becomes a matter of life and death. Above hurricanes, earthquakes, and floods, heat is the deadliest weather hazard we face today. Over the past decade, as temperatures have continued to rise, a yearly average of around 700 people have died from heat-related injuries. In Chicago, an overwhelming majority of heat-related deaths come from poor Black and brown communities. Miracle Boyd, an organizer with youth community group Good Kids Mad City, says the heat only makes existing issues worse.
A lot of people are dealing with asthma, they're dealing with diabetes, they're dealing with all these additional health issues on top of sweating heat. And some folks cannot afford to run their ACs all day.
Oscar Sanchez of the Southeast Environmental Task Force says that without the necessary infrastructure, their most vulnerable community members stand to suffer in this heat.
These communities don't have access to healthcare. These communities don't even have access to the right medical facilities to deal with these types of things. It could be something that's triggered by the heat. It can be something indirectly from the heat.
While the city has set up cooling shelters, Sanchez says that even if his community members wanted to run their aircon, they'd have to choose between that and their water pumps.
One of the things I think is most important to mention is this is the day after a storm, a really terrible storm, a flooding, right? And people don't understand this. There was a tornado warning, but this flooding is so terrible, right? When it comes to communities that I live in, like the Southeast side, when it comes to South Chicago, South Shore, we have water pumps running 24/7. So our community members are dealing with this flooding.
Sanchez says poor Black and brown communities are burdened with more damage and displacement due to increasingly extreme weather.
The thing about this is that we have these water pumps, but then there's power outages, right? So you don't talk about that. So then we have flooding, power outages. We can't pump our water. So then there's floodings that's even worse. And now we're dealing with a heat wave. So this really emphasizes there's a cumulative impact when it comes to being a part of a Black and brown community.
Boyd says the cooling centers don't address the root of the issue.
Poverty, a lot of families dealing with poverty this day and age, been dealing with this poverty issue in this day and age for generations at a time now. So it's like we have families that are malnourished on top of not having AC in their homes, whether the houses are suited and protected against this or not. Yeah, it's not working.
And we have to really say it for how it is. It costs to be poor. It costs to be poor when it comes to our health, when it comes to our finances. It costs us.
Cities tend to be hot. The traffic, the industry, and the asphalt keep cities up to 22 degrees hotter than their surrounding suburbs. But south and west parts of Chicago experience higher temperatures and flooding. Sanchez says this is in part due to their lack of trees and green spaces.
When it comes to the north side, and many of these communities, they have trees that provide shelter, and it's been proven with different studies that their heat wave maps are much less prevalent in those areas. And when it comes to our areas, when we say we need to plant trees, it's not just for heat, it's also for those flooding mitigations.
When comparing the city's heat index map to a map of its demographics, the hottest parts of Chicago correlate almost entirely with predominantly Black and brown neighborhoods. And it isn't all due to a lack of trees.
It's an issue for everyone. And this is on top of communities dealing with asthma and our communities being next door to landfills where trash is being dropped and all this pollution that's happening already. On top of pollution, we've got heat, climate change. This is what's happening now. And our government does seem to care, but this is definitely a real issue.
Both Boyd and Sanchez say many of their community members are without the resources to adjust to our changing climate. Yet they feel the brunt of its impact.
That's like the most important message here. Families cannot afford to live comfortably, whether it's the weather, financially, physical problems, or mental problems dealing with this heat.
Jamaica Ponder, CBS News, Chicago.